welcome back. This is the Northern Miner Podcast for the week of November 7th, and this is your host, Matthew Keevil. As usual, we are brought to you by the Yukon Mining Alliance. Please surf by yukonminingalliance.ca to check out all the exciting exploration and development news going on in the Yukon Territory. And welcome back, guys. Coming off that Halloween episode last week, that was always fun. Hope everybody enjoyed our long-form interview with filmmaker Nettie Wild. And again, please do hop by the Van City Theater or the Rio Theater a little bit later to check out Konalina, Our Land Beautiful. You can surf over to our website to check out details on tickets or go by the box office. And this week we have a pretty good show for you. Moving along. Lesley will be back with another episode of the Geology Corner, where we talk about veneer theory and the Hadean era, I believe. We'll get into it. Once again, this is more so an opportunity for me to ask questions and Lesley to help me out. So we will run that a little bit later. The other thing I have this week is I talked to President and CEO Jeffery Wilson of Precipitate Gold. Now, Precipitate has the Juan de Hererra project in the Dominican Republic in Central America, and that's right next door. People might be familiar with Gold Quest Mining, which is advancing, has a PEA on its Romero copper gold project, which is sitting on around, I think, 1.6 million gold equivalent ounces in the DR. And these are right near the Haitian border, almost on the border of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So sort of not right next to the tourist areas. But there's been some interesting work down there modeling the styles of mineralization they're discovering. It's still quite early days. There's been some talk about VMS deposits, orogenic gold, some epithermal sulfidization. So it's an interesting chat I have with Jeff from Precipitate, and that runs about 6 minutes. I'll run that for you after the Geology Corner, so closer to the end of the show. But just to run through our macro really quick, obviously the United States election is the big talk of the moment. This is obviously a little bit outside our purview, but the FBI reaffirmed recently that Clinton's handling of the emails was not a crime. Gold, which broke, or crested, I should say, that's a better bit of verbiage, crested 1,300 last week, fell subsequent to that happening to $1,285 around and per ounce. So once again, we see this whipsaw effect with the United States and gold. And just to get the U.S. election out of the way here, the final Bloomberg Politics national poll before Tuesday's election has Clinton ahead of Trump 44% to 41% when third-party candidates are included. So obviously we've seen the effect this could potentially have on gold. If Trump wins, it's going to go up, and if Clinton wins, it's probably going to stay well below 1,300. Meanwhile, silver, $18.31 an ounce. Copper doing quite well on a perception of reinvigorated demand out of some of the Asian economies, is trading at $2.32 a pound. Oil has continued to be relatively range-bound between $40 and $50 per barrel. So West Texas Intermediate, today we are looking at $45.52 per barrel. And yeah, just a quick catch up on some of the base metal fundamentals going on right now. Several base metals actually have pushed multi-month highs. As noted, we saw a 3-month high in the copper price recently. Nickel has broken through resistance to reach a 3-month high. And we're doing quite well on the base metal side. Copper inventories fell a net 6,600 tons to 298,400 tons, with bulk declines in Asia. So we're seeing a little bit of a rebound in the copper price. Again, that's also, we've seen that. We've talked a little bit about the met coal price rise, which is now, I believe, nearing $300 a ton, which is impressive for metallurgical coal. We can obviously say that's a general surprise for pretty much everybody. I don't think anyone was calling that one. So that's where we sort of are in terms of our macroeconomics. Obviously, everyone will be watching with bated breath for the United States election to wrap up and all the absolute insanity that has ensued with that situation. So yeah, without putting it off any longer, let's jump right in to this week's Geology Corner with Lesley. Again, it's about veneer theory. So the period in the Earth's formation prior to the Archean, as I'm doing this off the top of my head. But we get into this in detail, and there's a few competing theories on what exactly was going on. There's meteors. It's actually quite exciting. I won't lie. So I don't want to ruin it. So we'll run it right now, and I will see you on the other side. Yeah, because we were supposed to do this segment last week, but we had to do the Conalina segment with Nettie.
Yeah, which was amazing.
So this was supposed to be Lesley's Halloween Geology Corner, which is, you said it had a little bit of a spooky angle to it.
Well,
right?
It's really funny because since we just wrapped up Halloween, and then I realized, well, our American neighbors down south are actually heading into the U.S. presidential election. So I thought that I'd keep this week's geology theme along the same lines, which is spooky and scary.
Like the presidential election.
Right?
That's fair. Yeah.
Totally fair. So yeah, this week I am taking everyone on a journey into hell on Earth. Whoa. More specifically, the Hadean eon, Earth's first 600 million years.
Obviously named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. Obviously, because the surface on the Earth back then was truly hellish. Mm-hmm. Clearly. So scientists today also refer to it as the darkest of the dark ages in Earth's history because so little is actually known about it. But, the events that may have transpired during the Hadean eon could explain some of the Earth's greatest mysteries, like why our planet has such an abundant supply of precious metals near the surface. And of course, the big one, the origin of life. Yeah. Big deal. So I'm just going to jump into it, I suppose.
Yeah, let's hear it. This sounds really interesting. So this is like the beginning.
This is the very beginning.
So this is like the
and everything
dawn
happened.
Of geological time.
Sounds great.
There we go. That's the title. The dawn of geological time.
I love it. So yeah, when the Earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago, it was a molten ball of magma that began to differentiate. So kind of like when you take a bottle of salad dressing and you shake it up and you just let it settle. That's kind of what the Earth did. So the heaviest elements in the magma, like iron and such, they all sank and formed the Earth's metallic core. So all these iron-loving elements that were mixed up in the jazz, like this, I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce it right, siderophiles. Okay, that's like the nerdy name, and I can't pronounce it, but that's okay. Yeah. So these iron-loving elements, like gold, rhenium, and platinum group metals, they all latched onto iron and got sunk down below into the core as well. But here's the catch. Because these gold and rhenium and platinum group metals have such a strong affinity for iron, their abundance in the Earth's crust today and mantle should actually be really low.
Okay.
But it's not. And this has perplexed scientists forever. So why is that? Well, they realize, one scientific explanation is called the Earth's late veneer theory.
The veneer theory, okay.
Yeah, which is partly derived from isotope work done on lunar and Earth and asteroid samples. But I would also go so far to say that there's been some marijuana sampling in there as well.
Oh, there you go. That'll tell you a lot. It's very insightful stuff, that marijuana.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So in summary, they think that the late veneer theory suggests the Earth's molten skin was sweetened with these iron-loving elements from meteorites after their metallic core has formed.
Okay.
Right? So more specifically, around the first 20 to 100 million years on Earth, a large asteroid body like the size of Mars just collided with the Earth, right? And in turn, that spit out the moon. And then the Earth and the moon were bombarded for asteroids for 500 million years, just straight. And it all ended catastrophically with this grand finale in the Archean, 4 to 3.8 billion years ago.
Geological corners back.
Yeah, that's right. It's all tying it in.
Yeah.
So it's just this huge grand finale of all these asteroids just coming in like fire. The impact of these asteroids obviously would have been enough to remelt any of the Earth's crust that had actually formed. So,
okay.
If you were to clap your hands and your hands will get hot.
Yeah, you feel
it's kind of the
heat.
same sort of principle. Or
except at a very extreme.
like crazy.
You don't do this
so it's probably
with your
really
hands.
Loud.
Yeah, try not to do that with your hands.
Or, you could also consider what happened to the Sudbury Basin when that asteroid slammed into it. So a lot of things kind of happen.
And they're looking down in Greenland too, I think, a potential impact event over there was with North American Nickels looking at that Mantis Sook project. I think they have since gone away from that theory, but
originally
there was an impact event theory that was going on over there. But that's also a Voisey.
Yeah, it just gets a lot of things moving.
Yeah,
but,
mixes it up.
It mixes it up. Yeah. And so, most importantly, the asteroids during the early bombardment, cause a terrible word, could have polluted the molten surface of the Earth with a lot of these awesome metals that we scout out for today. And of course, the essential ingredients for life, like maybe water and carbon and other volatile compounds. Pretty cool, right?
So if I'm following this along here, so initially during the Hadean underworld era, if we want to call it that.
It's called the underworld, the dawn of geological
A
time.
lot of the minerals were drawn down by the iron and the heavier metals
into the
core, and then this asteroid hit and mixed everything up.
Well, lots of asteroids, just like heaps.
But the asteroids also brought their own metals.
Yeah, so it just basically created this veneer of metal-rich pockets of deliciousness, like just on the skirts, and then the Earth finally had time to cool and form its crusts.
And how long did this period last?
It's like 500 million years.
Holy smokes!
So it basically ended in the Archean. Like the grand finale was 4 to 3.8 billion years ago.
So this covers a pretty significant.
Yeah, well,
chunk of the development era of the Earth's.
Totally, and then the first crust that we know some of the oldest rocks in the Earth, on the Earth right now, we see, for example, in the Superior Craton of Canada. Yep. So that would be all the metal-rich provinces that we see in Ontario and Quebec and Manitoba, etc.
We just talked about the Ring of Fire.
Ring of Fire. I mean, These are Archean crusts. These are Earth's original crust. So shortly after that big bombardment with all this potential metal coming in and polluting the surface, the veneer of the Earth, then shortly after you get the crust starting to form and everything starts moving.
Now, is the asteroid theory the accepted theory, or is there competing theories like that?
Dun, dun, dun. Well, that's right. I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Yeah, okay.
Because please know this late veneer theory is actually widely debated. There's studies out there that are continuously challenging it. And the reason being, of course, is that our rock record doesn't extend beyond 3.8 billion years. So no one really knows what happened. If there's no rocks, there's no evidence. It's just marijuana.
Speculation. Marijuana and speculation.
Yeah, well, there's physics, but there's the isotope work that they're doing on samples and then kinetics.
So wait, I have to ask, so why do they're sampling the marijuana for?
No.
And then writing physics?
They're using it for inspiration.
Oh, okay.
That's only what I think. That's not actually
No, but they are actually getting isotope data off pot?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was like, fair enough. That must be some old pot plants. That's
I love it.
Yeah. You're insinuating that
somebody would. Yeah.
They're up there in a haze, trying to figure out what happened here. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I got you now. Yeah, I got you now.
Please, anybody doing isotopic work on marijuana, get in touch with me. I'll pull it into a geology corner.
Yeah, we'll get the stone scientists in here.
Stone scientists.
Yeah, they'll be.
Oh my god.
They'll be awesome.
You didn't say that. That's amazing. The stone scientist.
Physics.
Yeah, that's taking the stones out.
So do you have any of the competing ideas that anybody has come up with to counter the veneer theory? Or
not well. Actually, no. I was kind of reading about it, and it's about how it's really complicated. I can't get into it, but they're saying that the amount of these metal-rich, these iron-loving elements on the crust is proportionally, actually okay.
Oh, okay.
It depends on pressures.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it depends on temperatures. So they're doing all these massive pressure tests to show that the distribution coefficient is the same. But that's getting super nerdy.
Yeah, but so that theory is that all those metals weren't necessarily driven down to the core by the iron.
That it's actually proportionally okay.
The heavier elements. I see. That's cool.
But yeah, and it's really cool because the reason why it's such a hot topic, I guess pun completely intended. I didn't mean that.
That is a pun.
Real. Yeah. But yeah, it's such a hot topic because it's the closest that anybody has ever gotten to the origin of life. But for me, it really makes me want to sink my teeth into it further and look at it from a metal district point of view, because we know that we see a lot of spectacular gold and copper camps formed during the Archean and late Proterozoic.
Yep, the
party time. Check out that podcast. The Archean is the
Archean party podcast.
So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. But that's just my own little head going off, and people listening, they could say, "Oh well, Lesley, I can tell you why that's not the case." And send me an email. Let me know.
Yeah, we always want feedback, especially from stone scientists.
Stone scientists.
Might be out there. We love you guys. That's awesome.
And that's been this week's Geology Corner. Punishment for some and pleasure for many.
And welcome back to studio. I do love the Geology Corner. Honestly, I learn pretty much as much or more than anyone else when we do that. So we will continue drilling those out. If you do, once again, have a question or inquiry you'd like us to cover on the Geology Corner, please do fire us a tweet at Northern Geo or at Matthew Keevil, and we will make sure to fit that in. And if it involves calling somebody or doing a little bit of a background, we have no problem doing that either. So don't be shy. Fire us over topics for the Geology Corner, and we'll be happy to cover them. And just touching base with our sponsor, the Yukon Mining Alliance, quick announcement. On October 31st, the Yukon Mining Alliance announced 4 new members. That includes Goldcorp, actually. Independence Gold, Metallic Minerals, and Strategic Minerals. Most exciting, obviously, for the territory is Goldcorp. We've discussed at length their acquisition of Kaminak and the Coffee Project, so it's nice to see them hopping on board with the local alliances and getting involved in the Yukon, because Goldcorp's a real leader in our business, and it's great to see them taking such an active role in the Yukon. The other members, Independence Gold CEO, we've talked to CEO Randy Turner. They have the Boulevard Gold Project, which is right near Coffee. We also have Metallic Minerals and Strategic Minerals, and everybody will know Strategic Minerals. They are a project generator up there. They had a role in the discovery of Attack's Rakla project, as well as numerous other projects in the Yukon territory. So it's exciting to see that the Yukon Mining Alliance is expanding its membership. Hopefully this portends some nice active exploration seasons upcoming in the territory there. And now we can move right in to my quick, I believe it's about 6 to 7 minute interview with Jeffery Wilson, who is the president and CEO of Precipitate Gold. Now, Precipitate, as mentioned, has the Juan de Hererra Gold Project in the Dominican Republic. Their main target there is called Ginger Ridge, and they made the discovery, drilled the discovery hole there back in September 2014, intersected 18 meters of 4.5 grams gold per ton within strongly disseminated semi-massive and massive sulfides. So this is another one of those emerging projects. People may be familiar with Unigold and, as we mentioned, Gold Quest along the Terreo gold trend in the DR. And I had a chance to sit down with Jeffery. Very nice chat. He just mentioned that over the past 2 years, obviously the discovery was made in 2014. They've sort of been battening down the hatches. It was some tough financial markets, so they've been waiting to get back out there drilling again on this project. They've done a lot of IP geophysics, some ground soil geochem. It's really just tightening up their targets and looking regionally for other sort of analogs to what they've discovered at Ginger Ridge. And they actually, just on November 7th, announced they are cranking right into a 2,000 meter drill program down at the Juan de Hererra property, and that's going to be budgeted. The total program, the drilling's 2,000 meters, and then they're going to do some additional IP surveys and basic prospecting and mapping. The whole program is earmarked at about $1 million. So it's nice to see companies getting back at it with the drill bit on some of these more earlier stage discoveries. They raised just around, I think, $2.6 million via a non-brokered private placement in earlier this summer. So it's nice to see some of these exploration stage companies getting cashed up a little bit and getting the drill rigs back out on these projects, especially in prospective areas like Terreo in the DR, where we've seen north of, nearly 5 million ounces of gold equivalent discovered at Unigold and Gold Quest projects in the last decade. So that's exciting stuff. So what I'll do right now is I'll run my interview with Jeff. This is on location in downtown Vancouver, and I'll be back to wrap the show up on the other side.
Yeah, in 2014, when we made our discovery, obviously we were pleased to identify a massive sulfide, semi-massive sulfide material, the kind of gold intercepts that we saw there with the highlight of 13 grams over 5 meters. But the drill discovery was made at the northern extent of an IP survey. And so the question for us coming through that discovery was, does this anomaly continue? And so we were able to go back and do follow-up IP work to indicate that the anomaly does in fact continue to the north and in fact becomes quite strong and intense as it moves in that direction in a very linear way. Unfortunately, the market at that time in 2014 and even 2015 was not particularly amenable to raising capital for exploration stories and discovery stories. And so we had to sort of hunker down and look at other ways to continue to add value, advance the company and the project, but not blow up the capital structure of the company by issuing an enormous amount of stock at cheap prices. And so we were able to do a number of different things. One of those was we got into a data sharing agreement with our neighbors Gold Quest. They had been in country for 10 years and spent nearly $20 million. So there was an extensive amount of intelligence to be gathered there. We acquired some new property packages in the southern extent, contiguous to our existing package, that we thought was quite prospective, and flew some airborne over that new property package, where we identified some quite interesting airborne anomalies, which have now emerged into geophysical and geochemical anomalies that we're currently following up. Yeah, the strategy for Ginger Ridge is, of course, we sort of have an analogous signature hole where we understand, we believe, the environment with which the sulfide materials are hosted, and the objective here will be to continue to test that along strike. So we're going to propose a follow-up program here of about 2,000 to 2,500 meters of drilling, 10 to 12 holes along strike, to identify whether or not that sulfide body and ultimately gold mineralization does in fact continue along strike with some continuity and consistency. In tandem with that, we're also running similar geophysical surveys to what we did at Ginger Ridge originally, over multiple new target areas outside of the Ginger Ridge anomaly. And so the hope here is that while drilling is ongoing at Ginger Ridge between now and year end, or the beginning of the next quarter of 2017, we'll also be delineating or firming up additional geophysical, geochemical targets that we hope will indicate drill-worthy targets for subsequent drilling down the road. I mean, we're working in an environment here in this belt of the Dominican Republic where there's not a lot of obvious outcropping, and so really it is good old-fashioned prospecting, mapping, and sampling that is leading us into geochem anomalies, silt soil sampling, not sort of obvious outcrop, as I stated. And so it's that work where we're able to sort of vector from broad-based geochem into magnetics and then into ground IP, is kind of necessary in order for us to sort of vector in on where we think the best opportunities are. And so spending the time and spending the money to delineate our best targets, we think will give us the best shot at drill success down the road. We're fully permitted for the Ginger Ridge target, so there's no delays there. While we've been running IP over Ginger Ridge as a final pass before we commence drilling, we've in tandem with that, we've been mobilizing drill equipment and camp equipment up to site. So I see a very little or very short turnaround between completing the ground geophysics at Ginger Ridge and commencing drilling. I suspect that by the middle of November at the latest, drills will be turning, or the drill will be turning. And the program itself will probably run, it could run into the first quarter of 2017 with a small break over the Christmas holidays. But I expect assay results to be coming either near year end or into the first quarter of 2017. And that will really start to give, obviously ourselves, but also the market, some indication of just what we have here at Ginger Ridge.
And welcome back to studio. I'd just like to thank Jeffrey Wilson from Precipitate Gold again for joining us. That was great. We will be, as we move forward here, trying to get more CEOs, managers, analysts, etc. on the podcast to bring a little color to some of these press releases, maybe get some exclusives, and hopefully eventually we can ask some audience questions too. So once again, if you have a story you're interested in, if there's a CEO you sort of want to hear from, etc., please do tweet me at Matthew Keeval. We'll try to get them on the show, and maybe we'll even ask your questions if we can get people willing to do that. We will most definitely take listener questions, and that's just a segment we're going to have moving forward, whether it be analysts like Joe Mazumdar, who's been on our show, Mickey Fulp, the mercenary geologist, or great CEOs. We've had Clive Johnson from B2 Gold, we had Max Porterfield from Calinex, and now we've had Jeffrey Wilson from Precipitate. So we will continue to try to get managers and representatives on from popular and breaking stories to get a little bit more color for the listeners. And that's again, please do if you have a request or a specific question, please do tweet me, because we're more than willing to chase down a lead for you. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up once again is on November 17th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., I will be Master of Ceremonies at the CIM Vancouver Annual Student Night. And this will be at the Pan Pacific. And tickets run from $35 to $100, depending on if you're a student. The link is on our website, so you can surf by and grab tickets there. Once again, that's November 17th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I'll be the MC, and we will have the keynote speech from Mike Cinnamond, CFO of B2 Gold. So if you want to get some, Mike will be telling some cool stories about building up the company, operating in far reaches like the Philippines and things like that. So some cool stories about establishing best mining practices, Canadian best mining practices internationally, which will be great to hear from Mike. I've met him a couple times. The B2 crew is generally really good to talk to about company building and establishing bases of operations in a diverse set of jurisdictions. So yeah, once again, that will be the CIM student night, November 17th, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. You will see me there with a mic. So do surf by our website and check that out. There'll be some other good speeches, and it'll be a great night of dinner and networking and stuff like that. So do check that out. You can surf by the Northern Miner. We have the CIM Annual Vancouver Night link there, and also you can surf by the CIM website to acquire tickets. And that should pretty much wrap up our show for the week. Thank you again for joining us. We do value your listenership, and we will catch you next week at the Northern Miner Podcast.